I'm Joel Searles here, and I'm with Samurai Pulse for We Are the Mighty. I've got Captain Dye, actor, writer, and military technical advisor. He's just wrapped Masters of the Air, which was produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. It's great to have you with us, sir. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing fine, Joel. I'm probably the most interviewed guy these days of anybody in the cast, I guess. But Masters of the Air is a great project. It's becoming a mega hit, which is great. So I'm glad to talk about it.
Yeah, you'd shared, I believe, in one of your other interviews about Steven Spielberg's father being a World War II veteran.
Yeah, Steven's father was a B-25 air crewman in the Pacific Theater. And he'd always been at his son, Stephen, about, yeah, okay, we get it about Band of Brothers and we get it about the Pacific, but when are you going to do the Air Corps? And I guess Stephen had enough of that. And he finally got together with Tom Hanks. And they said, all right, we're going to do the third part of the trilogy. And it's going to be Band of Brothers, the Pacific, and now Masters of the Air. So as usual, they called me and said, look, it's time to train these people. And I said, wait a minute, none of my guys are aviators. And he said, well, you think it over because you got to train these people or the actors will revolt. They've all heard about Capt Dye's training methods. So you got to get up there and do this. So we took a look at it. And fortunately, we had some guys on call who were B-17 experts, one Brit and one American. And we folded them into the military department right quickly. But when we got to figuring out how we were going to do this, the philosophy was this. If you're a young guy and you join the Army or you're drafted in the Army in the 1940s, World War II, you soldier before you aviate. So we said, look, here's what we'll do. We'll train them to be soldiers first. And then we'll gradually, kind of in a crawl, walk, run process, we'll get them up into being B-17 crewmen. And so that's how we approached it. And we had about 12 or 14 days. As usual, I got their attention with heavy PT, which is my classic deal. But we did some enormous research, Joel. I think we read every memoir B-17 crewman there was. We read every World War II monograph and every World War II training manual we could get our hands on. And we designed this training syllabus. The important part about it was, I think, we had upwards of 50, 60 actors every day for 12 hours. And we said, wait a minute, there's one thing missing here. Usually, when we train these people, we have them for 24 hours. We have them fully immersed. We own them during the entire training period. They live in a barracks with us, or they live in the field with us. But this time, the production couldn't afford that. They said, look, we'll give them to you for 12 hours a day, but then you have to give them back because we've got to run them through wardrobe and all these other machinations that go on. And there were a lot of them. So it wasn't a simple thing. It wasn't a 5 or 6 man cast. These were 50, 60, 100 people a day. So we understood that. And the more we talked about it, myself and my executive officer, Mike Stokey, we said, look, this really actually plays into our hands. Because the truth of the matter is, a B-17 crewman flying over Nazi-occupied Europe in the 8th Air Force in World War II flew an 8 to 10 hour leg in combat. And then if he got home, he was back in sort of a garrison life. So he could go to the pub or he could get some sleep or he could write letters and do all the things that you can't really do in the field.
Right.
So I said, let's play to that. Let's play to that as a strength. We'll train them for 8 to 12 hours a day, make it tough on them, flood them with information, and then let them go. And then the next morning, they have to come in and be back in the routine again. So it kind of worked out for us. We put them in the mindset of 8th Air Force air crewmen in those days. And I think it worked out well.
Yeah, I would say it so, because they seemed like real pilots and real military people in watching it and watching the episodes. So, and you turned Elvis into a World War II bomber pilot with Austin
Yeah,
Butler.
it was amazing. And look, the special effects are the star of the show. There's no question.
Right.
Uh, and they are jaw dropping. I mean, it's eye popping what you see going on. And they spared no expense. They actually built two uh, full scale B-17s, one of which we could, like a remote controlled car, we could taxi it around on the runway, and we were in those things constantly. And the thing about it was, when you were inside that aluminum tube, which by the way looks huge from the outside, but is cramped and tiny when you get on the inside, especially in the gunner's positions.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in there, and you're surrounded by what you're used to working what's called green screen, and you work against a green painted wall or drape, and then computers generate on that whatever image you want. Well, in this case, we had this volume unit that was called, and it literally surrounded 360 degrees around these aircraft parts that were on gimbals. And rather than just looking at, we could actually tune the computers so that what the actors were supposed to see, they were actually seeing. So they could look up and see those things. And it was an amazing aid to performances. I have no idea how any of it worked, but it was wonderful to see. And of course, like all miniseries, we had a hot and cold running directors, and we had to be at their elbow all the time saying, wait a minute, last episode we did this, we can't do that. But that's all part and parcel of continuity and part and parcel of our job. So it was we were 10 and a half months over there on the thing. So it was a long shoot. We went through a British winter, and it was bitter and horrible, but then it was bitter and horrible in World War II.
Right.
So in the end, I think we produced a nice piece, and certainly audience reactions so far have been tremendous.
And rightfully so. The time and effort and the attention to detail you and I'm sure Mr. Spielberg and Mr. Hanks and his crew bring to any project they do, it definitely shines through here. I was impressed with the uniforms and the special effects, and definitely the jargon used by the pilots. It sounded like you had real B-17 pilots there consulting on the film, or excuse me, the series.
You can't say enough about the wardrobe people and the props people and the set design people. They were magic, and they did research that was absolutely grinding. They were down to what color was the underwear and what's the electric suit and all that sort of thing, and they always had it there for us. But it gave us an idea. I mean, it's difficult if you've never flown as a B-17 crewman in World War II, and there are very few of us left alive that have. It's really difficult to believe how much gear they wore. Mm-hmm. And 10,000 feet, and it's all eye acting because you've got this oxygen mask on, and how cramped and how difficult and how ice cold it was above 10,000 feet flying these bombers, and how deadly it was.
Yep.
The statistics about survivability were just amazing. They're stunning how many were lost. You'd get into that aircraft, and this is part of what we tried to train these guys about. It's hard to put a person in that sort of mindset, but you have to try, because the truth of the matter is these were guys engaged in the biggest crapshoot of the war. I mean, they got in that bomber and flew knowing the odds were against them surviving. Or if they survived, the odds were good they were going to be captured or killed on the ground. So it was an intense effort to make them understand that they were portraying people who had that sort of patriotism and that sort of courage and that sort of tenacity. those are words that you don't get bandied about much anymore. But they were certainly bandied about on those B-17 crews. Mm-hmm. And so much of our training, much of the preparation, and much of the reminders that we had to do throughout the shoot was simply to say, listen, remember, these are real guys. All you got to do is read Don Miller's book, Masters of the Air. These are all real characters. Mm-hmm. And you are under an obligation to portray them correctly. And that means you have to understand that tenacity and that courage and that patriotism. So those are the things that we were constantly trying to do as we went through the shoot. And of course, it helps when the producers are Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, and Gary Getzman. I mean, that's kind of top of the pinnacle list.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that.
You don't, right. And so everybody was really trying to do a good job. And for us, it really was, we understood we were working on the third leg of the trilogy, having done Band of Brothers in the Pacific. And now we're doing Masters of the Air. Whether there's going to be a fourth leg to that stool, I'm not sure. There certainly could be. I mean, if the audience continues to react the way they've been, I see no reason why we couldn't do another one. We just have to find something.
What would you want to do if you could?
Well, I think the obligation clearly is we got to do Navy.
Yeah.
We've done the Army Airborne. We've done the Marine Corps. Now we've done the Army Air Corps. It looks like we're bound for the Navy. And given what Tom and I did on a film called Greyhound, mm-hmm. It might be that he cranks up that reputation and says, okay, let's do World War II and make it a four-part rather than a trilogy. Could be, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Wow. I look forward to it and hope you get the chance to do another one, because it's definitely memorable, cinematic, and episodic characters you bring to the screen, and there's stories that need to be told. Were any of the men that served still alive from?
They were. There were very few of them, just a handful, and we saw some of them when we were doing the premiere in LA. I think there were 3 of them that were there, but they were all 90, almost triple digits. But the great old gents, and some of them were able to talk to us and give us a little bit of hint. But Miller had done so much research for his book, right, that really that was kind of the Bible. You folded it open and looked for the character and read about him, and there you go.
Yeah. Before we close here, was there any particular challenge that you faced that sticks out to you that you might want to share about?
Well, I think anytime you get into doing World War II in the air, you've got a difficulty. It's tough to do that story visually. As I said, we spared practically no expense to get what we got. And I think we got some spectacular stuff. But every day we found ourselves moving portions of fuselage around and putting them on gimbals, and then surrounding them with this volume unit, rear screen or green screen, computer generated imagery. Mm-hmm. And that was difficult. And just watching those technicians work and sync up the whole thing will always be, black magic to me. That was, somebody shaking a rattle and dancing around the campfire. I mean, I have no idea how that happened, but the amazing thing was that you could see it. It was happening right there. You weren't waiting for dailies or anything like that. You'd see that and say, there it is, I get this. So I think that more than anything, if I'm ever going to do another Air Corps picture, I'm going to do it in that methodology, because I don't know what the hell else you do, and you can't do it live. We had some spectacular stunts. The stunt crew was just magic. We had a fire rush through the fuselage of a 17, which you'll see if you haven't seen it already. Right. And we had people bailing out of it. Now those are practical, We had people bail out and actually film them headed for the ground. So it was a spectacular extravaganza. But as I said, I think in the end it paid dividends.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. It's been a pleasure, and
Sure.
I'm so glad you brought your expertise and creativity to another fine project, and I've enjoyed watching it so far. And you've got, I think, another episode coming out this week, and then
Yeah.
a few more all the way into March. So I'll be catching those for sure. So
Terrific.
have a great rest of your week. It's a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Joel. Talk to you later.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.